Om Shri Mahaganathipataye Namaha. Om Shri Saraswati Deviye Namaha. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Shankarupena Manchittam Pankhe Kritamabodhyaya Kinkariyasya Samaya Shankaracharya Mahasraye Bharati Karunapatram Bharati Padabhushanam Bharati Padamarudham Bharati Tirthamasraye Vidya Vinaya Sampannam Vikaragam Vivekinam Vande Vedanta Tatvajnam Vidushekara Bharati Satguru Charanarvindabhya Namaha. नमस्सभाभ्यः सभापतिभ्यश्च वो नमः। ज्येष्ठ शुक्ल प्रथम अस्माकम् अत्र अयं समावेशः भगवतां कल्पितं महासौभाग्यं। श्रीमद् भगवद गीता देवी महात्म्यं च एतयोः ग्रन्थयोः वैशिष्ट्यम् अद्यतन उपासनकर्त्री डॉक्टर ज्योत्स्ना कलावर इदानीं प्रतिपादयति। डॉक्टर कलावर जॉर्जिया ग्विनेट महाविद्यालये मानव विकास परिवार अध्ययनस्य प्राध्यापका भवति। कर्नाटक राज्य मुक्त विश्वविद्यालये संस्कृते स्नातकोत्तर पदवीम् अपि सम्पन्नवती। सा देवी महात्म्यं श्रीमद् भगवद गीतानां मध्ये सादृश्यं विश्लेषणं प्रस्तुतं करिष्यति। श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। Today's talk on Devi Mahatmyam and Srimad Bhagavad Gita, a comparative analysis, will be done by Dr. Jyotsna Kalavar. Dr. Kalavar is currently a professor of human development and family studies at Georgia Gwinnett College in Lawrenceville, Georgia. She has also completed her master's degree in Sanskritam at Karnataka State Open University. She will be presenting a comparative analysis on the similarities between Devi Mahatmyam and Srimad Bhagavad Gita texts. First, Dr. Kalavar, please begin the satsang.
Shri Ganeshaya Namaha, Shri Krishna Paramatmane Namaha, Shri Saraswatyai Namaha, Shri Chandramonishwaraya Namaha, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Is this not loud enough?
Mic is on.
Namassabhaye. Thank you very much to the temple authorities, to the friends here in Pittsburgh who have organized this event, and to all of you who have come to listen to the greatness of two of our scriptures. I don't claim any scholarship on any of these topics, but I've had the privilege of learning from wonderful teachers who have very generously shared with me their understanding. They started out with an introduction. I was fortunate to learn from very good teachers, both in the United States and India, and I owe my debt of gratitude to each one of them, and I offer them my pranams. And over the course of teaching for 25 years, I have come to see certain patterns and thematic sort of understanding, and that's what I'm going to share with you today. So, our Sanatana Dharma has a wide array of scriptures. We're not limited. We're not limited to a single book. We have, as Swami Chinmayanandaji said, we have a library. And in that library of knowledge, we have two books that stand out. These two books are so revered for their content that the books themselves are worshipped because they are considered to be the embodiment of that knowledge. So we have Srimad Bhagavad Gita and Devi Mahatmyam. Now, our scriptural repertoire includes from the Puranas, Purana meaning old, all the way to the Brahma Sutras, and the Puranas being more an understanding of the highest truth expounded in folklore, in ways that we can understand, relate in simple story format. And then you have the Brahma Sutras, which on the other hand go on to presenting abstract ideas and thoughts in a form of aphorisms. And so those are difficult to distill the meaning and so on. So we have such a range, and it caters to people of all levels of understanding. Now, Srimad Bhagavad Gita is part of Mahabharata. We all know that. And when we say Mahabharata, it is part of what we consider the Itihasa. Iti ha asa, iti ha asa, thus it happened, thus it was, indeed it was. So this is a historical account of what took place. So Mahabharata is that Itihasa. And in the Mahabharata, there are 18 parvas. Parva has many meanings. Parva can mean festival, parva can mean section, parva can mean episode. There are 18 parvas, starting from Adi Parva to Swargarohana Parva. And somewhere before the midpoint, around it's the 6th Parva, is Bhishma Parva. And in the Bhishma Parva, chapters 23 to 40 comprise Devi Mahatmyam. So this is found in the Bhishma Parva of Mahabharata, and this is ascribed to Maharishi Vedavyasa. Now, Devi Mahatmyam is one of the 18 Mahapuranas. So again, this is also in that format on this end. Brahma Sutras are on this end, if you were to look at it along a continuum. So Devi Mahatmyam is part of Markandeya Purana. There are 18 Puranas. There are 18 Mahapuranas. There are 18 Upapuranas. There are Sthala Puranas. So it goes on and on in terms of categories. And even these 18 Mahapuranas, they are subdivided into 3 sections. And one group is Brahma, one group is Vishnu, one group is Shiva. And this Markandeya Purana is in the Brahma group. So 6 in Brahma, 6 in Vishnu, 6 in Shiva, like that. So Markandeya Purana, like all the Puranas, they talk about creation, progression, all kinds of various things. And Markandeya Purana is no exception. It also has Markandeya in conversation, and that is typical of our scriptures. They're always in a Q&A kind of format, and there is this conversation and upanyasam that is given. Here, Markandeya is talking to both Jainini as well as Kraushtuki in different parts of this Purana. And in the Uttara Bhaga, the latter section of Markandeya Purana, he is talking about all the 14 Manvantaras and each one of them, how they came to be. So you have sort of like little stories about each one of them. And Devi Mahatmyam is in fact the story about Savarani Manu. How did Savarani Manu come to be? That is what Devi Mahatmyam is all about. So again, all the 18 Mahapuranas ascribed to Maharishi Vedavyasa. So the first point we have in common between both these scriptures is we have a common author, Vedavyasa, Maharishi Vedavyasa. Now, this Bhagavad Gita is said to have 700 verses. Some say 701, that they ascribe to that one verse that is added to chapter 13 by Arjuna when he asks for clarification about Kshetra, Kshetrajna, Prakriti, Purushaha, Jnanam, Jneyam. So that verse is what? But normally it is typically considered as 700. The one got added later. People are not in full agreement on who added it, but Madhusudana Saraswati is probably the one whom this is ascribed to. So we have 700 as a very auspicious number for Bhagavad Gita. Now in Devi Mahatmyam, evam trayodashodhyayaha homa pujana triptishu shatani sapta sankhyaani tava proktam shailaje. There are 700 verses, O daughter of the mountain, that describe you and the process to adore you, whether it is with puja, whether it is with homa, or whether it is with tarpana. So 700 that are there. Now those 700, sometimes people will say they are 700 shlokas, but we have to be very careful. They are not 700 shlokas, they are 700 mantras. Okay, so 700 is the number ascribed. So if you are into Samskrita Vyakaranam, it will be Saptanam Shatanam Samaharaha Saptashati. That which contains 700, that is Saptashati. So we add Durga because she is the subject matter of this. So Durga Saptashati. So Devi Mahatmyam is about the glory of the Divine Mother. So actually the number of shlokas is about 578, roughly around 580, you can put it as that. So every, even the introduction, one mantra is Markandeya Uvacha, the starting, that is one mantra, that is how we get our 700. Even though if you add it up, it only comes to about 580 shlokas, 580 verses. So 700 is another thing that they both have in common. Whether it is 700 shlokas or 700 mantras, both of them have that. And both revere the Divine Mother. In Bhagavad Gita, the Dhyana mantra starts with Advaitamrita Varshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayinim Ambatvam Anusandadhami Bhagavad Gita Bhavadveshini. So you are Amba, you are Mother, Ambatvam. And she is venerated as Mother, and she who is Bhavadveshini, she who destroys this bhava, the samsara, so she who destroys rebirth. So she is venerated as the Divine Mother in Bhagavad Gita. Can we move to the next slide? So when we see this, we also take note that there are 3 sections in the Bhagavad Gita. We find that there is very similar even in Devi Mahatmyam. So 3-section division is part of both Bhagavad Gita and Devi Mahatmyam. In Bhagavad Gita, Tat Tvam Asi, the Mahavakyam from Chandogya Upanishad, that is said to be part of it. Tat meaning that, and it is in Napumsakalinga because Brahman, the infinite, is Napumsakalinga. So Tat, Tvam, you are, Asi is the Kriya Padam, saying you, that thou art, you are that. So the first 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita is considered the first Shatka. a group of 6 Shatka. 7 through 12 is the second Shatka. 13 through 18 is the third Shatka. So the first Shatka, it is said, is a description of Tvam, you. 7 through 12 is a description of Tat, the infinite. And 13 through 18 is a description of Asi, is. So even in Bhagavad Gita, we see this threefold division. It is conceptualized like that. In Devi Mahatmyam, we find a threefold division also. There are 13 chapters in Devi Mahatmyam. Chapter 1 is the Prathama Charitra. So that is the first episode. The second episode, chapters 2, 3 and 4. Unlike the Bhagavad Gita, it's not evenly split. It's 2, 3 and 4 chapters. They make the Madhyama Charitra. And the Uttara Charitram, chapters 5 till the end. So we have this threefold division that we see in both scriptures, which is very fascinating. And they are also addressing slightly different focus. That is Tattvamasi, and here we are looking at the gunas and overcoming that. The movement in both is from darkness to light. Doesn't matter which way you slice and dice. It is said in Mahabharata that before Arjuna even asked Krishna to move his chariot, which we see in the first chapter, Arjuna Vishada Yoga, he asked Krishna for blessings. And Krishna is said to have said, you need to pray to Goddess Durga. And he composed this verse, which is known, this composition, and this is the first verse of that. And this is called Durga Stavanam. So the Durga Stavanam, the praise, the verses in praise of Durga were chanted by Arjuna in the battlefield. And let's say it together. Namaste Siddha Senani Arye Mandaravasini Kumarikani Kapani Kate Krishna Pingale Bhadrakali Namastubhyam Mahakali Namostute Chandi Chande Namastubhyam Tarini Varavarnini. This is there in the Mahabharata. He starts, a lot of it is Sambodhana, those who are learning Samskrita, vocative, calling out to her. And it is she who appears before him in the battlefield, and she tells him, you will be invincible. She gives him that assurance. She tells him, victory is yours. You have Narayana with you. You don't have to worry. So this is there in the Mahabharata at the start, before the Bhagavad Gita Upadesham, that Durga is praised. And we already have seen that she is called as Amba Tvam Anusandadhami. So this adoration of the Divine Mother is there that we see in the Bhagavad Gita. Now, Devi Mahatmyam is all about the Divine Mother, Jagadamba. She is the means, she is the end. She is both. We need her to be able to make that progression from darkness to light. And she leads us along the way. And every step, the first Charitram is about Madhu and Kaitava. Madhu is like, representing, Kaitava, dislikes. So first we need to overcome that, the likes and dislikes. The second Charitram is about Mahishasura, and that is representing Vikshepa Shakti, Rajoguna. The first is Tamoguna, darkness, inertia, ignorance. The second is representing agitation, passion, achievement, egotism, all that. And the third, which is the hardest to overcome, is Sattva Guna. And you have a host of Rakshasas. in there. Dhumralochana, cloudy perception. You have Chanda, Munda, Raktabija, Shumbha, Nishumbha, and they all represent more the subtle aspects that one must overcome. Because she, that divine mother, is Gunatita, she who is beyond the gunas. And in order to progress spiritually, we even need to overcome Sattva Guna. So that is a subtle element, very hard to overcome. So we find in Devi Mahatmyam that Devi is eulogized and she is seen as the means of leading us from the passage from darkness to light. Now, in both of these, we have the war scene. We know Arjuna is at the battlefield and he is fighting a war that he does not want to. But at the initial level, he has asked Krishna to move his chariot in the middle of the battlefield so he can see both sides. And only when he saw both sides did he experience that, sort of what is called sometimes psychosis or the fear or the anxiety, and his mental equilibrium was off. Sidanti mama gatrani, mukham cha parishusyati, all of these, my gandivam, sramsate hastat, everything is falling, my body is shaking, my lips are parched, all those experiences. In Devi Mahatmyam, you have King Suratha. And King Suratha was a very just, he was from the Surya Vamsha, and he was a very just king. He was loved by his disciples. And he always wanted to protect the indigenous kolas. But there were kings in other kingdoms who sought to kill them. And he was no match for them. There were many of them, they attacked, they plundered his kingdom. And he was actually thrown out by his ministers who also became part of the plan. And he was left bereft of a kingdom, wealth, army, treasury, everything. Completely dejected, completely isolated, he went into the forest. And he stumbled upon the hermitage of sage Medhas. Medhas representing wisdom. And sage Medhas was there in an ashrama where wild animals were roaming along with students who were learning. That's how peaceful the ashrama was. Wild animals did not even know their fierce nature. And there he stumbles upon Samadhi, who is the businessman. And Samadhi has been ostracized by his wife and children, and they have banished him. He is completely upset. Both men are wandering. They stumble upon each other. They have a conversation. And they figure out that both of them have been usurped of their authority, wealth, position, status, etc. And they can't understand why their mind is still so attached to the people who have rejected them, to the people who have cheated them. Why is it that my mind is like this? And they both go to sage Medhas with that question. The king speaks on behalf of Samadhi and he asks the question. Bhagavan swamaham prashtum ichham ekam vadasvata dukkhaya yanme manasaha. He is asking that, and then he goes on to say, Drishta doshepi mamatvam. I am seeing that there is dosha, there is a defect in this mamatvam, mindness, my kingdom. In fact, some of the shlokas will describe. He's wondering, are they taking care of my royal elephant? How are my attendants doing? Which new kings are they running after? Are my children okay? So much attachment, even though they have discarded, ostracized, banished, And he himself is at a loss. Why is my mind filled with so much attachment and so on? And so she begins to, Sage Vedas then begins to expound the story of Mahamaya. And he says, Jnaninam api tejamsi, Devi Bhagavati hisa, Balada Krishya Mohaya, Mahamaya Prayachati. Even those who are Jnaninam, the wise, even them she will hurl into delusion. She is capable of doing that. So he then begins to talk about Devi Mahatmyam. So the scenario is of a crisis situation. Both of them are there. They are both at a loss of how to proceed. Why is my mind so attached? And Medhas, representing wisdom, is now giving the Marga Darshana. What is it that you need to do? You can only achieve her grace by propitiating her, by venerating her, and only through her alone you can make that passage to absolute truth. Now we see Arjuna. He is also having a crisis, and he says in chapter 2, he says, Katham Bhishmam aham sankye dronam cha madhusudana ishubhi pratiyotsyami pujar havari sudana. They are pujar arhau. They are worthy of being worshipped. Ishubhi, with arrows, how can I fight them? Arjuna is asking that question. But both of them, the common point is both surrender. So both of them, he says, Shishyasteham Shadhimam Tvam Prabannam. I take refuge in you as your disciple. Shadhi, instruct, not the Hindi Shadhi. So Shadhi, Mahaprana. So this is, you please instruct me. I want to know what to do. There is a surrender that Arjuna engages in, and only after that does Krishna start the Upadesha, Ashotyanam Vashochastvam. Till then, Krishna does not provide the Upadesha. It is not different in Devi Mahatmyam. Sage Medhas, in fact, Surataha, the king, is in the ashrama and enjoying the hospitality for a short bit of time. And only after he asks that question, because he, in conversation with Samadhi, is figuring out that both of them are afflicted with this attachment, and they're not able to overcome this. And so that is when he asks Sage Medhas, and he asks him to provide guidance. And till he makes that surrender, Medhas, Rishi, does not give him any Upadesham on this. Now, as I told you initially, Markandeya is the Rishi who is telling Kraushtuki. And within that is the conversation of Medhas talking to Suratha and Samadhi. Just like Sanjaya is telling Dhritarashtra, and within that is the conversation of Arjuna and Sri Krishna. So you find so many similarities, conversations within conversations in both the texts you find. So, and the king is saying this. He says this verse, Bhagavan Swamaham Prashtumichhami. Bhagavan Swamaham Prashnam Prashtumichhami. So he says, Dukkhaya yanme manasaha swachittaya tatam vina. And then he goes on, Drishta doshepi vishaye mamatva krishta manasau tat kim etat. What is this, O Mahabhaga? Yanmoho jnaninoho api, jnaninor api. So this is that question that he had asked. So the first chapter, as I said to you earlier, represents Tamoguna, that is the Prathama Charita. The second is Rajoguna, and the third is Sattva-guna. And we find in Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna is also talking about the gunas. So he says very clearly in chapter 7, he says, Daivi Yesha Gunamayi Mama Maya Duratyaya Mameva Ye Prapadyante Maya Metam Karandite. So these are all these gunas, they're all in contained. Gunamayi, Mama Maya, they are all part of the expression, and this is Duratyaya, hard to cross over. And he says, Mameva ye prapadyante, those who worship me, Mayam etam tarantite, they will cross over. So there is this theme of surrender, this theme of single pointedness, this theme of unflinching devotion that we see in both the texts. In both the texts, we find there are assurances of coming back to protect the righteous and to destroy evil. We know chapter 4, Yada Yada Hi Dharmasya Glanir Bharata Abhyuthanam Adharmasya Tadatmanam Srijamyahami. The Lord is assuring, and He says why? Paritranaya sadhuna vinashaya cha dushkritam. Very clearly elucidated. In Devi Mahatmyam, after the progression has occurred, and chapter 11, the Devas are rejoicing, all of them, all the Amaras are rejoicing that Jivatma has reached the destination and Narayani's Stuti is happening. That is when, again, you will see, she gives the assurance. She says, Vaivasvatantar Devyuvacha Vaivasvatan Vaivasvatentare Prapte Ashtavimshati Meyuge Ashtavimshati Meyuge. Sorry, I'm blanking out. Vaivasvatentare Prapte Ashtavimshati Meyuge Shumbash. But she will give in that, she says this shloka. She says, Nanda Gopagrihe Jata Yashoda Garbha Sambhava Tatastvam. I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank. So she promises that I will, in chronological order, if you were to think of it, Devi Mahatmyam precedes Bhagavad Gita, because she says that she will be born in Nanda Gopa Grihe Jata Yashoda Garbha Sambhava Tatastvam Nashayishyami. So all that she says, and then he also says Punarapyati Raudrena Rupena Prithvi Tale Avatirya Hanishyami Vaiprachittans to Danavan. So this Danava, this wicked person, will be killed by me. So she gives that thing that she will come again. So very clearly in both we see the theme of assurance that goodness will always be protected, that righteousness will always be protected, that wickedness and negativity will be overcome. So this is again something that we see in common with the two scriptures. So in Bhagavad Gita, in chapter 11, Arjuna is fortunate enough to experience Vishwarupa Darshan. And he gets the divine eye, and he is then able to perceive the Lord in all his brilliance. He is actually so stupefied, he cannot say anything. It is Sanjaya who describes. So then Sanjaya Vacha comes, and he says, Divi Surya Sahasrasya Bhavi Yugapati Paduthita Yadi Bhasadrishi Sasya Bhasastasya Mahatmanaha. If 1,000 suns, SUNS, were to rise together, Divi in the sky, Imagine the illumination of 1,000 suns. Yadi, if that were to happen, the illumination, sadrishi, like that, sasya bhasastasya mahatmana. That was the illumination that he saw of 1,000 suns rising together. And this was Sanjaya narrating this. So this is made possible because for Arjuna, by Sri Krishna, by granting him that Divya Drishti. In chapter 2 of Devi Mahatmyam, all the Devas, their positions have been taken over, they have lost their authority. Yama, Varunaha, Suryaha, Indraha, Agni. So they keep Brahma in front of them and they go to where Shiva and Vishnu are seated and they narrate all the exploits, the wicked exploits of Mahishasura. And they tell him what all he has done, how they are denied their authority and so on. And how they are wandering aimlessly. Martya Loke. They are just wandering aimlessly. Then both Shiva and Vishnu express their anger by knitting their eyebrows, and from that comes a light. There's a light of Shiva, there's a light of Vishnu, there's a light of Brahma. Then all the other devas give a light. Each one gives a light. And all those lights, they merge together and become one. This is in chapter 2 of Devi Mahatmyam. All the lights merge together and become one. And it is said that the lights surpass a mountain of lights. Imagine that. So again, this description of that divine cosmic splendor is just unimaginable. They say that, and then they say, Ativa Tejasa Kutam. There is a conglomeration of Tejasa, that much. Jwalantamiva Parvatam. It is like there is a mountain on fire, that kind of. And Dadrushuhu Te Suraha Tatra. The Devas all saw that there. Jwala Vyapta Digantaram. All the quarters were filled with that illumination. There was nothing other than that cosmic splendor. So here, and then it goes on. Atula Tatra Tattejaha Sarva Deva Sharirajam. That light which came of all the Devas. Sarva Deva Sharirajam. And then Ekastham Tadabhunari Vyapta Loka Trayam Tvisha. Ekastham, they became one. All this, the light of Brahma, the light of Vishnu, the light of Ishvara, everything became one. Ekastham became one. Tat Abhut Nari, put it together, Tad Abhut Nari. Vyapta Loka Traya Tvisha. That was the Tvisha, the radiance, the splendor, that it engulfed the three worlds. So when you look at Devi Mahatmyam, you see that description, the light that became a Nari, and that light which enveloped the three worlds, and which was larger, surpassed a mountain. In Vishwarupa Darshanam, we see Krishna, who is that light, who only could be seen with that Divya Drishti by both Arjuna and Sanjaya. So we see this experience depicted there. In the 10th chapter, Vibhuti Yoga, Arjuna is asking, I want to know more about your glories. Or he tells him a little, no, in detail I want to know. It's like a little more audio I want, little more. In 11th chapter he's like, no, audio is not enough. I want video also. I want to see your Vishwarupa Darshan. So here, the Lord starts describing his vibhutis. Ahamatma Gudakesha. I am that Atma, O Gudakesha. O you who are the Isha of Gudaka. Sleep you can take Gudaka Isha. There are many other ways also it's interpreted. Sarva Bhuta Shayasthita. In all beings that I am there. In everything. Sarva Bhuta Shayasthita. Aham Adihi cha, Aham Adis cha, Madhyam cha. He says that Bhutanam Anda eva cha. I am the beginning, I am the middle, I am the end. There is nothing that I am not. Very clearly Krishna says that in chapter 10, Vibhuti Yoga. And in Devi Mahatmyam, Raktabija is there, all the mothers, Saptamatrikas are there, they are all there. Brahmani as the Shakti of Brahma, then Varahi as the Shakti of Varaha. So each one of them, they are also there, they are also fighting all that. Chanda is gone, Munda is gone, Dhumralochana is gone, Raktabija has gone, Nishumbha has gone, Shumbha is left. Shubha represents mindness. Shubha represents I. So the I is disabled without mindness. So mindness is not there. So now he is afraid. He has seen Nishubha go down. He is enraged. And he calls out to her. In fact, he calls her Dushta, all kinds of Dushte and so on. Shubha. And he's accusing her of playing unfair. He tells her, you are with all these mothers. I am alone. You are so many, I am one. You are not playing on fair ground. And that is when the Divine Mother says, Ekaivaham jagatyatra dvitiya kamamapara. Who is there other than me? She asks him rhetorically. There is none other than me. These are all my manifestations. They are only my vibhutis. And saying so, she takes all of them and she absorbs them all into her. And she says, okay, now we are one. We are both fighting. So there is only one. Ekaivaham jagatyatra dvitiya kamamapara. Who is there other than me? It is along the same lines that we find what Krishna has talked about. I am there in all beings. I am the beginning. I am the middle. I am the end. So if we were to look at both these texts, and I have only been able to hit some key points. I mean, this is a presentation that can actually be much longer because there are so many issues, so many points. For instance, we look at both these texts and we know eradication of the negative tendencies within us is talked about in both texts. The triple gates of misery Krishna talks about, right? He says Kama, Krodha, Lobha. He says, he describes all three of them. And even in chapter 3, Arjuna says, knowing it also still, why does man make mistake? Atakhena prayuktoyam papam charati purushaha. Why does man make a knowing it? And then the Lord says, Kama esha, Krodha esha, Rajoguna samudbhava. So there is this element of we have to work on our inner enemies. Kama, Krodha, Lobha, these are the three emphasized in Bhagavad Gita. In Devi Mahatmyam also we find the same thing. All these asuras represent negative tendencies within all of us and they need to be addressed suitably. They need to be deprived of the ability to survive. They need to be eradicated at the root because otherwise they will grow and multiply. So the theme of eradicating impurities, cultivating a sattvic mind in order to be the recipients of divine grace is something that we see in both the texts. So they both, we can say, are moksha grantha. They are telling us about how to reach that final liberation. Both of these texts share that. That is the common goal in both. And we also see that chapter 18 is Moksha Sannyasa Yoga. Moksha is the topic there. That is the title of the chapter. The last chapter of Devi Mahatmyam, Varapradhanam Nama. That is the Varapradhana is done. And what is the Vara that is given? Surataha, who was the king, asked to become a Manu, and he gets that authority. He regains his lost kingdom and he becomes the Savarani Manu in the next life. That is what he asked for. But Samadhi, the businessman, asked for Jnana, Moksha, and he gets that in the last chapter. So in both of them, Moksha is addressed very beautifully and described as the end goal and seen in both texts. So I know I have 4 more minutes to wrap this up. I'm mindful of the time. Sarvakalika Grantha. What does that mean? These are 2 granthas that were not for that period of Savarani Manu. It is not that this was meant only for Arjuna during the Kurukshetra war. These were timeless teachings meant for people at all times, in all situations, things that we can draw from and be inspired by. So this is the beauty of both these texts. I have just been able to touch on a few points here, but I hope you have the chance, if you are not already doing so, to study them and to look and examine what are the sort of the thematic components here and how our scriptures go beyond Swarga. So they, Swarga Apavargada Devi, Narayani Namoste. So Apavarga, people will break it down also. Pavarga. Pavarga is Pa, Pa, Ba, Pa, Ma. Pavarga, Pa, Punyam, Papam. Pa, Phalam of those 2. Some people will describe it like that. Pa, Pa, Ba is the what is it? The Bha is Bhayam, Ma is Mrityu, and there is somehow I'm sorry I'm having more senior moments than I had hoped for. I'm sorry, I'm not able to pull it up. But these are the 5 that are there. So you have Bandhana, attachment. Dhanyavada Mohdaya. So Bandhana, attachment. So all these Apavargada, she who gives us that which goes beyond Punya Phala, Punya Papa Phalam, she who is helps us overcome Bandhanam, then Bhayam, and then Mrityu. Because that cycle of births and deaths, that is overcome. So Apavargada Devi, she who is that, she who gives not just Swarga, but Apavarga also. So this final destination that we all hope to reach, both texts beautifully elucidate. The Bhagavad Gita, as we say in the Dhyana mantra, Sarvopanishado Gavo. And then we say, Dogdhan Gitamrutam Mahat. It is that Gita Amrutam of all the Upanishads, that's that milk. That is what that is. And he is that person who is the milker, Shri Krishna. And we are looking at that Bhagavad Gita as leading us in that way. In Devi Mahatmyam, we find the beautiful progression. And if we were to go through this step by step, and overcome likes, dislikes, the agitation of the mind, the Vikshepa Shakti, and then move in the direction of Sattva and then overcome that subtle barrier, she will lead us also towards our final destination. So among Shakta literature, among the Tantras, Devi Mahatmyam, the glory of the Divine Mother, is so highly revered and respected. And this is so frequently chanted. Both texts are worshipped just by the textbook itself is worshipped because that is the knowledge that is found in them. And they continue to be timeless because they continue to inspire, teach, and encourage us to lead a spiritual life. Sadashivasamarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om Tat Sat. Thank you all very much.